And from all we can cross now to Beijing to speak with our correspondent there, Charles Pellegrin. Charles, international pressure very much mounting against China in recent days.
Absolutely, international pressure mounting on many different fronts, as we saw in the United Nations Human Rights Council with that statement from the French Foreign Affairs Minister, but also from the UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab, asking for the UN to have unfettered access to Xinjiang in order to investigate these reports of human rights abuses in that region in the far west of China. But also some pressure mounting in other arenas, for instance, with the Canadian Parliament that voted to approve a motion that qualifies what is currently happening in Xinjiang as genocide. That word genocide first used in a country by the Trump administration and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in the last days of the Trump administration, a word that has been used again and approved of by the new Secretary of State Anthony Blinken of the Biden administration, Joe Biden, who has committed to watch more closely human rights abuses in China. Now, the European Union has seemed to have been a bit quieter on this particular issue, especially as we saw with a investment agreement between Brussels and Beijing struck at the end of 2020, but with a clause in there that that China would commit to ratifying International Labor Organization conventions on forced labor, but without any clear timelines. So the European Union's position on this perhaps toughening with these new statements, but still many questions about whether human rights and economic matters will be dealt with separately. But what was for sure is that in the European Parliament there are more and more voices calling on something to be done about this mass repression in Xinjiang.
So, Charles, what has China's reaction been so far to this mounting criticism of its treatment of its Uyghur Muslims?
So China's ambassador to the United Nations has condemned all these criticisms from many different countries, saying that it amounts to meddling in China's internal affairs. This is the usual line from Beijing on this particular issue. And in general, the narrative from China on what's happening and what's being enacted in Xinjiang is that this is both anti-terrorism policy to curb Islamic terrorism in the region, but also a development policy. And often these accusations of forced labor in China, the camps are presented as vocational training centers and with programs that encourage poverty alleviation that are entirely voluntary. And when it comes to this, to the UK demanding unfettered access to Xinjiang, the spokesperson from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here in Beijing has explained that that China has made an open invitation to Xinjiang to the UN, and that the two sides were in negotiation. One of the stumbling blocks here appears to be that China doesn't want this to be this visit to be an investigation into these reports of abuse. They say that this visit should be a visit to promote bilateral exchanges and cooperation. Xinjiang, just as a reference, is not a place that is completely locked off to the outside world, the same way that Tibet is. If you're a foreigner in China, you can go to Xinjiang, but it's extremely difficult to move around there freely and without being followed by the authorities.
Charles Pellegrin in Beijing, thank you very much.